Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Imperial Wealth's cryptocurrency market update podcast. Today, we'll just be Taylor and I discussing kind of the unraveling events of the last week or so, in which we've seen a lot of ups and downs, I would say, in emotions for most cryptocurrency investors. Um, and yeah, we'll run through the bank run situation, a bit of BTC price action. We'll talk on mining a bit. I believe there was a lucky miner out there, Taylor.
Yeah, pretty interesting one. Do you want to jump into the mining stuff first, or do you want to get the
Yeah,
fundamental?
yeah. No, let's get into the mining stuff.
I reckon a good news article of the week, which is a pretty rare occurrence in the last few months for mining, which is always good fun. So there was a solo miner who mined an entire block of BTC in, I think it was 2 to 3 days. So very impressive feat considering that usually takes sort of 8 to 10 months. So you got 6.25 BTC for 2 to 3 days. So I think he was mining with 6 and a bit petahash. So not a small miner. He's probably anywhere from 50 to 100 miners to do that, depending on what they were. So
Jesus.
pretty interesting. Yeah. Not, and apparently it was someone in Russia that was renting hash rate. So not really sure what you pay for hash rate these days for a short time frame. But if he dropped 10 grand on it, he still walked away with 150 US. So it's pretty good.
Hit the lottery, really, didn't he?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting like that. It's quite funny. Like we saw one last week. You and I were discussing about that was one on Binance pool that was about 2 seconds,
Yeah.
and the only reason we caught it because they had no transactional volume
Mm,
on it, so no
yeah.
ordinals, no nothing, which was quite interesting.
Yeah.
So it does happen. Blocks get mined quickly, but generally not by a solo miner.
Yeah, a bit of a one in a million chance type of stuff, which we
Very
see
much.
see happen
I
from
think
time to time.
yeah, I think the stat from what I think it was Cointelegraph put it up was that it was 1 in 250 solo miners can do it under 6 months. So very rare, very rare.
Yeah, hang on. I just want to see. Oh, sorry, I had your big face as the entire screen the whole time rather than, than splitting us. But I'm sure the fans will appreciate that.
Exactly right.
You
I'm a good
bet.
looking Jim.
Yeah, you're better looking than I. Um, so yeah, well that's a bit of mining stuff. Obviously, the network is as strong as ever, which is always a positive thing at these stages of the market, and it has been very healthy for a long time. It's particularly relevant at the moment, the hash rate and the network, considering the news surrounding Bitcoin, and even the notion that of these bank runs that are happening and people flocking to Bitcoin. Another obviously confluence with that is ensuring that the decentralized network of Bitcoin is strong and holding up. And a simple way to say it is, banks can close down, they can put your funds elsewhere, do a whole lot of malicious things, but Bitcoin will continue to run and never shut down no matter what.
I know. It was actually quite funny. I saw an article that was purely a fluff piece, but there was a village in somewhere in Central Africa of a very disadvantaged group where they had actually set up a little turbine in their stream, and someone had sent them an S9,
Wow.
and so they're mining Bitcoin in Africa free.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
pretty
uh,
cool.
I think I remember we did a podcast. I might have done an article on it. It was a few
Mm,
months ago now, but yeah, it was a rural village in Africa that was being completely powered
mm.
by excess mine energy and stuff. So that was really cool to see. And I think considering the hyperinflation and how bad the economies are in Africa, that the adoption of Bitcoin is starting to become a real thing, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. And it just adds to that decentralization that it's legitimately across the entire globe now. So it's pretty interesting in that sense.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. Alrighty, well, we'll get into kind of the major events of last week. I think we'll go from, well, we can kind of talk about where we were touching on last week. I think when Will was posing, or when we were just discussing the Mount Gox and Shanghai stuff, we kind of came to the conclusion that they were a bit of nothing burgers in terms of FUD. People just trying to get any kind of FUD narrative and run with it to kind of spook people into selling and to sell crypto prices lower. Obviously one of them was the release of the Mount Gox hackings from 2014 or 15, whatever it was. But we stated that the top two creditors, which accounted for 25% of the holdings, were going to hodl and get it in Bitcoin as opposed to fiat, which would have required the sell pressure of Bitcoin on the market. I think a lot of the other creditors were doing the same because why not at this stage of the market, I guess. Um, and they were obviously all once believers in Bitcoin. Unsure if that belief was lost once they lost their Bitcoin maliciously, but clearly not.
You got to
Um,
believe it, and you can't get it for 10 odd years, and you get it back, and it's 15 times what it was. You got to
yeah,
believe, surely.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a good point. Um, and then obviously we spoke about the Shanghai upgrade to ETH, which meant a lot of unlocked staked ETH across the last, year or 2 years, whatever it was, that was locked up to support that. And we talked about Lido or Lido, however you want to pronounce it, and how a majority of people were probably liquid trading and liquid staking anyway with that form of ETH, and so a lot of people probably weren't going to get their ETH back, and it's probably a similar thing to Mount Gox really. People locked up ETH, at the bottom 2 years ago, whatever it was, $90 is what it was. It's $1.7 thousand now. Um, with a bit of a rally happening, then you're unlikely to sell it and put that pressure on the market. So that was obviously a bit of nothing as well. But it probably did contribute. I don't know. I don't personally believe it contributed a lot to the downward selling pressure. I do believe I'm a technical trader, obviously, so I do believe that we were due for some form of pullback after kind of synthetically running from 16,000 to 25,000 without a strong pullback from the start of January. But it was still, worth mentioning. Um, but we'll dive into what the real kind of FUD was towards the end of last week that saw us dip to, I think it was as low as 19.5K or kind of just below that support level of 20,000 odd US dollars. And obviously the first one was, I think, midweek or towards, the latter parts of the week was Silvergate, a well-known kind of crypto-friendly bank in the US. Were winding down, and this sent out a lot of kind of fear and FUD into the market because crypto firms such as Coinbase, Paxos, I think Gemini, Bitstamp, Galaxy Digital, amongst others, were obviously had reserves in this bank. So a lot of people kind of scared, obviously, because when you see, we've had battle scars across the last year, which we'll actually dive into more when we talk about Silicon Valley Bank and USDC, but scarring of these major firms. We saw 3AC amongst many others that were attached to other things, such as Luna, that went under and subsequently took many retail traders with them. Um, and then yeah, so I think the main thing to kind of point out here was that we did dip upon this news, and it kind of built and built and built, and it wasn't until I think was it the next day Silicon Valley Bank, or roughly.
Yeah, it was sort of overnight for us. I think it was when SVB went down, and what was it? The Fed came out and said that all creditors have been made whole.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was obviously after the SVB one, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah. Um, but just touching again on the kind of Silvergate one, people obviously don't see past what it is. They probably first read the piece and think that Silvergate's the only crypto-friendly bank out there, and immediately think, well, everyone's stuffed now. But it still leaves many crypto firms with alternatives and substitutes. And, if anything, it makes the space more decentralized in a way by removing another traditional or centralized actor. Um, but yeah, it was clear that it didn't really have such a large impact. To see BTC hold $20,000 with stuff like this coming in whilst it's priced at that, only goes to show the strength of the market and the demand right now.
Well, that's the thing. What we had three major banks pretty much go down.
Yeah.
The second largest bank collapse since 2000,
Yeah.
and we still held pretty well, in my opinion. I think that's a really big testament.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's especially the case when we'll talk on it now, was obviously Silicon Valley Bank, which was probably the most prominent of the three that went under, and it really kind of also made Bitcoin its moment to shine, because we had a situation where obviously USDC, or Circle, the company that mints or controls USDC, sorry, had I think it was 3 billion of their 40 to 42 billion dollar reserves kind of in there. And once again, as I mentioned, with Silvergate and 3AC and a bit of FUD and fear of retail traders, is everyone's thinking back to Luna, and once USD started to depeg a little, I think it got as low as 85 cents, was it? Or
Something like that. I remember seeing it in the 80s. Yeah.
yeah, so it got as low as kind of 85 cents before, I think pretty quickly bouncing. But there was heaps of concern amongst traders, investors, analysts, and obviously people in the industry. Um, Essentially, what happened was it was shut down by a California, financial regulator. Once again, I think we've spoken at it on length um, on these podcasts, but people just assume that because they're such a large bank, they've got all your cash in the bank, and it's never actually the case. It's the same as FTX, it's the same as 3AC. They all over leverage themselves elsewhere. In this case, it was on bonds and treasury yields and stuff like that, and obviously the Fed's doing the fastest interest rate hike, in history, I think, or one of,
Mm.
meant that all these investments were affected, and now these banks have gone under. And there was a lot of fear at the time. USDC was pegging. Everyone thought that all the depositors weren't going to get their money back, because I think it's the FDIC only insures up to $250,000, and I think that
Yeah.
only accounted for like 4% of the depositors
Yeah.
with that bank or something. So 96% of as it stood at that time, of the depositors were going to lose um, their money. So, we kind of saw the world start to react. USDC went under, everyone was freaking out. And I think
Yeah.
at this stage we're still kind of trading around. And then it kind of opened the door for this narrative, that people can't trust banks as much as people think they can't trust crypto. But there's a decentralized asset, like we said at the start of the podcast, that doesn't shut down, that you can park your money in, and it can't be lost to someone over leveraging it elsewhere. Obviously, if you have it in cold storage and you've got your self custody done right.
Mm.
um, and we started to see this really positive kind of reaction once regulators started to take action and said, we'll make all the depositors whole, which was good, just for the market wide stock markets and whatnot. And then, it kind of started spinning this narrative of quantitative easing, because, I think we've seen JP Morgan come out, Goldman Sachs, was it? You sent me through another one saying,
Yeah.
we want to pause in interest rate hikes. We want 25 BPS, I think JP Morgan said. And what's happened is we went from having a 0% chance of a 50 BPS to everyone freaking out over the latest CPI, not the latest, but the CPI data beforehand. That didn't come down too much due to changes in calculations, which we won't get into. But then I think it was an 85 to 90% chance of a 50
Mm.
BPS by that chance. And then after this all unraveled, it's now a 0% chance. I checked before. I think
And they've
it's,
got 70 to 80% for 2.25, and now it's
yeah,
like 20% for a no change,
yeah,
which
correct. So
I don't think in the last 6 months I've seen any form of percentage for a no percent change.
yeah, it's
Taking that
crazy.
as a good sign.
Um, yeah, it is crazy. And if we got that, I tell you what, strap in, because you'll see risk assets obviously fly and Bitcoin enjoy even more of the spoils. But quickly, just going back to SVB, they said depositors will get protected, and then I think to do with the quantitative easing, they said they'll create backstops of banks. So essentially, this says, hey, if you stuff up, we'll just pay you out, we'll bail you out, which is
Well, I
crazy.
think I read into Yellen's report about it, and they're not bailing out, but I think the bank has enough bond liquidity to pay clients back, but over 3 years.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So it's like, as much as we would to a degree love them to print more money because it's only going to help our cause further, I don't think they're stupid enough to yet. I think if one more falls over, they'll have to, because as soon as they're not leveraged enough, they're stuffed.
Yeah, well, it's that interesting kind of notion. I often tell you that Jerome, the great Jerome Powell, lost his credibility long ago, and the market doesn't really listen to him. Um, and now it's this situation, isn't it, where he's been pretty steadfast, saying, I'm going to keep rate hiking, 50 BPS on the cards next. I'm going to do it until inflation's tamed. But now he's going to have to come out and say, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I stuffed it, and I stuffed the banks, and kind of he's going to have to go, well, now I want to pause or do 25 BPS, and everyone's going to say, hang on, like, you've said for so long you're going to get to this target of interest rates, but now you're seeming like you're not. Um, but anyways, it was really good to see kind of Bitcoin's reaction to this, because as we touched on, it was almost created by Satoshi Nakamoto for this purpose, wasn't it? You know, it was off the bank of the '08 banking crisis. Um, and he really created it for this sense of thing because and it poses the question, will people keep buying Bitcoin given it is easy for self-custody and you don't have to hold it in a bank and run the risk of losing it by a centralized entity? And it's really interesting to kind of see the narrative shift in the space of what was 24 to 48 hours of crypto's dead, we're going to 10k USDCs depegging to this is our savior.
I'll put it into an easy context as well, I guess. Like, I haven't really mentioned it before, but like my father-in-law is like, crypto is the no-go, right? Like, he's an
Yeah,
old school accountant. But even last night or the night before, sorry, at dinner, he asked me about Bitcoin, considering the banks.
yeah,
So, do you know what I mean? Like, as much as it's sort of a troubling time in the industry, I think more and more people are seeing the limelight eventually. So,
yeah.
who knows? We might see a lot more people going in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is good because I think I messaged into our Telegram for the Trading Academy. This is kind of the moment of truth for BTC. The
Mm,
world's kind of watching, and it's been good because I think the cream on top was obviously SVB caused all this narrative to occur, and the cream on top was then Signature Bank falling
yeah,
over, the day or two after. And by this stage, it was almost like, well, nah, this is the unstoppable nature of BTC now. It doesn't matter that this one's fallen because everyone's shifted their mind, and it only bolstered the case that was being presented by Bitcoin, really. Um,
exactly.
so yeah, it was interesting to see. And I don't think anyone expected this. I certainly didn't. But I think that another notion now is that I think is unlikely. But will we decouple from the traditional markets if everyone from those markets is moving to Bitcoin? As I said, I doubt it. But it is
I think we
still,
need a few more things to fall, wouldn't we?
yeah, I think so. And once again, you got to come back to realize how much institutional investment there is now in Bitcoin, from a lot of US institutions and big hedge funds and stuff, and more often than not they'll trade alongside the other markets they're even more so invested in. Um,
I reckon we need a Bank of America to collapse.
yeah,
Which,
well,
look, they got a ton of debt now after that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think I think what I saw the other day, they got close to 200 million now in the red, considering what happened with Silvergate and whatnot. So
yeah, and
definitely
I think the
0.5.
positive, yeah, I think the positive thing come out of all of this is 4% is currently the global adoption of cryptocurrencies, I believe, or around that. If more people flock because of banks and then we're approaching the halving, the scarcity becomes even
Yeah.
more. And,
Well, that's the thing, like when you put it into context, like we spoke actually about it a few months ago on the podcast about the adoption rate from the Bank of America when they did like an internal study for clients.
yeah,
And this was, during the peak of the downtrend at, 16, 17K, and asking clients, how likely are you to purchase crypto in the next 6 months? And it was like a 60 to 70%
yeah,
yes rate.
yeah.
So, I think that's definitely gone up. I think adoption will be peaking in the next few months if we continue a trend like we are now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And particularly, if easing does come in and rate hikes, everyone know what happens to risk on assets when the printer goes brrr, so as Cal likes to say. Uh, but yeah, a whole interesting concepts to get through and analyze. As I said, incoming halving, banks unstable, Bitcoin is a safe haven, interest rates, CPI, the whole lot. So there's so much as an investor and analyst to take into account right now. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin has put in, to last night's high after the favorable CPI data, which came in at 6% on expectations. We finally broke the range highs, and we finally that was a 9-month range. So I think back to May was the last time we were 26 in the 26,000 odd, and we got there last night. We've obviously had a bit of a soft, which I can quickly get up a chart if we like. I can show you guys on the daily here. This is obviously where we entered the range, and you can see kind of obviously in August we put in the 25,200, 300 odd thing, but we've been in this range, oh sorry, since June, May, and last night we kind of ranged up. And what I will show quickly is, I might as well, is for those that want to know kind of why we reversed is we've got a major golden pocket Fibonacci retracement kind of sitting there on the chart. Looks like we swing forward, and if we actually go to the daily candle, it's quite an ugly kind of daily candle, but so far we've kind of maintained some strength. A pullback from here could be likely. I'm more positive that, if we do, it will only be to the 23, 22K area, but ultimately, I think if interest rate hikes are 25 BPS next week, or you get that unlikely kind of chance of a pause, that we can work our way up to the 28K area, or at least to flip this to support, and that's where things become interesting. I mean, there's so many patterns kind of playing out on the charts at the moment. Is there? We've got almost like an inverse head and shoulders on the chart that I sent through to you guys before that could, play out. I do have once if we go to finance, yeah, we've got this kind of log scale. Oh, sorry, falling wedge that's kind of playing out, high low. We've got the strategy here, and then there's a similar thing on the ES, which I also found, really interesting that could potentially play out. So there's a heap at the moment, both fundamentally and technically, to take into account. I do hope that, we kind of do return and we kind of, auto, that we kind of do break out of this range. We do see 28K, because I think, particularly if we break through that kind of consolidation area here. So I'll just kind of, I know you can't see the chart, Taylor, but I promise I'm
There, I'm
doing the right
looking at it, I'm
thing.
actually following on my own, so we're all good.
If we kind of break through here, well, you can expect that we definitely go to 40K, and that's when things will turn ultra bullish, and you can safely say that we've kind of broken down of the long downtrend that's come in Bitcoin. So yeah, a few interesting weeks coming up, isn't it? Obviously next week, as we mentioned, the interest rate hike. And that'll probably set the tone, whatever that is, for the next few months, I would say, not even the next couple of weeks. So, is there anything else we wanted to touch on? I think that was most of it.
I guess the only main one in the sense of the mining stuff is that there is obviously a handful of rumors going around about XPs and things like that. So I think it's important to sort of chat to someone here or whoever you mine with, in a sense, to have a suss at what is the best option for you. Just being with reliability, there's a few question marks on them at the moment, and new miners coming out. Obviously, there's new hydros coming too, so reach out if someone wants to have a chat about those. But the data is suggesting that the time is now. Otherwise, people will be coming back, and machinery prices would have moved again. Demand through the roof and whatnot. So yeah, just I guess on the mining front, always sort of go and have a chat to someone about what the best option for you might be.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's the kind of same notion, with the trading academy we have,
Mm.
as well. The investors and traders that have been with us for a few months now, are definitely in a good position, or positioned very well on a lot of altcoins, and even the DCA strategy we had on BTC and ETH. I know we picked up BTC at 17,000, which has been a really good pickup, obviously. And then, I think we grabbed a bit of ETH at, 1100, 1300, 1500, which is all in profit now, which is really good.
And don't
Um,
forget the earlier one as well, mate. We got it at 900. That's pretty. You got it.
we did get it at 900 and flipped it
Yeah.
for profit, obviously, and then reinvested that back in at 1100, which was awesome. So I will quickly show one thing as well for any listeners that, are a bit kind of wondering if they need to make up their mind whether to invest or not. I did do a research article, just getting it up on our news site, which is loading. I kind of did, I'll show this on the screen now. I did has the cryptocurrency market bottomed out? I started looking at the arguments for against, and you can go through and it talks about the bear market downturns, yearly charts of BTC, the halving cycle, RSI's history and how it's looking now, Bitcoin hash ribbon, but it also looks at some arguments against. And then also takes into differing macroeconomic conditions, inflation, the DXY, what the NASDAQ and the ES are telling us. And then obviously, if we could see any reversals from here, what that could look like. And
Mm.
interesting notion of the Chinese economy opening up, injecting liquidity. Japan, I think, is too. Canada's pause rate. So, anyways, it takes a look at a lot of different things, and maybe you make your mind up yourself, or you can get in touch with Taylor or I or someone from Imperial Wealth if you want to start educating yourself some more on that, or beginning to get some tips.
Yeah, easy. I think the other thing I wanted to mention as well that you're probably a bit modest to talk about is the return on the Trading Academy thus far. I think I calculated a few weeks back, and it's probably shifted a bit further. But we're talking since June, July last year. It was roughly a 30 unit return.
Yeah.
So some pretty big props on that. That's depending on what unit size is. If you're using $1,000 units, you've made 30 grand in 6 months. So if you're looking to get into the market, it's definitely a good time. These are the times where you set yourself up for the next five plus years. So reach out to
100%.
me myself, and we'll be able to help you out with that and go through all the steps and whatnot. For sure.
Yeah, awesome. And I will just add one last thing to that. I remember when Cal and Will were first getting into crypto, 6 years ago. I can't remember specific examples, but it may have been, we're at 3,000 Bitcoin at one stage, and we went to 8,000. And Will was saying to me, "Come on, you just need to get some Bitcoin here." And I kept saying, "Nah, I'm too late. I missed the 2x, I missed the 3x." And a year later, it was at 69,000. So it's never too late to educate yourself or invest. Even I'm guaranteed, like, majority of the market is sidelined right now because they didn't have in place a DCA strategy. They didn't have the conviction to invest like we did in June, July last year, even further in September, October, November, when we were even lower. We got some buys out because most investors and analysts, they can't stomach investing when there's blood, and they kind of sideline themselves, and then they wait for lower, and then it gets to a stage like now, and they're still sidelined, and they don't want to enter. So it's never too late. Things looking really good right now, and yeah, I think we summarized everything.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Awesome. Last thing, has CZ put his money in yet?
I actually don't know. There is a way we
Yeah.
can check. I'll see if I can actually find the wallet, and we can have a live look at the wallet.
I was going to say, we've been waiting a few days now. When's he going to pull the trigger?
He may have. I don't think he
Yeah.
did. I will take a look.
I did check yesterday and he hadn't done it. So,
Because it is a Binance hot wallet.
Finance 14 or something, I think it was.
Yeah, the wallet Binance 14. Here we go. It's still got a billion here. I'll show it on the screen for everyone on scanner. Oh, that's the doorbell. It's almost perfect timing. Yeah, it's still got a billion in BUSD, so we still haven't had the pump from CZ and Binance.
Run, watch out.
Yeah. All right, I need to run and grab the doorbell. It's perfect timing. Thank you, Taylor, and thanks everyone for listening.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.